So if I start with Nuala Kilmartin. Nuala is Innovation Lead for Digital Security by Design programme within Innovate UK and accountable for driving the market development of the challenge and working in partnership with government, industry and academia to gather the real industry benefits to create demand and onboard advocates for the technology. I know she's been doing a lot of work with groups, both commercial and non-commercial, and is a great aid to the group. Robert Norton. Robert is a senior researcher with Microsoft and began his career as an embedded software engineer at Broadcom, then switched to academia, working at the University of Cambridge on the CHERI project, subsequently joined Microsoft and was part of a small team that developed the Chariot ISA, Core and RTOS. So very much hands-on. We've got Ashley Setter, Head of Engineering at NquiringMinds. So focusing on developing secure and scalable solutions for securing the networks for IoT devices and deeply involved in the Secure Networking by Design program. And then last but far from least is Mike Eftimikas, the founding director of the CHERI Alliance, as well as his work as VP of Strategy and Ecosystems at Codasip. Mike has worked in the semiconductor and electronics industry for over 30 years with companies such as VLSI Technology, New Logic, and ARM. So welcome all of you and apologies for the very long introduction. So to ask the first question and to move a little bit away from technology, so really to Nuala, but I'd like the rest of the panel to also come into this. With the CHERI technology, what is the intention of Innovate UK? What is it that you think you're looking to achieve, and how do you measure that progress? And then perhaps I can get the rest of the panel to come in on that as well.
Certainly. Thanks, Hayden. Well, obviously, the challenge came around from Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund back in 2018. So, and we obviously know even from what Robert was saying that the research for CHERI has been ongoing for well over 12, 14 years. So, the road that we've travelled over the past 4 years, 5 years, has been fantastic, certainly in terms of the research. And we've been fortunate enough to have strong collaborative consortiums across the UK, working on this. And we're now at the stage where we're starting to collate that evidence and that impact. So we're really driving forward the perceived benefits in productivity, performance, obviously looking at cost savings. And if we can do what we said we were going to do in terms of addressing the market failure from the 70s, then, we've certainly fast-tracked from a societal challenge point of view, a more secure and resilient future. This is obviously more than technology, more than R&D. This is about society, which is why we're also delighted that we have ESRC on board, because we've been looking at the human element of why you need to be safe online. So this is actually, certainly bigger. Tremendous if we can block over 70% of the vulnerabilities, but also from a government perspective, we aren't on our own, and we've been working very, very closely with MOD, and we've influenced obviously many of the strategies across government. So that in itself, as Robert mentioned about in terms of influencing policy, has really helped. And now we're moving into an international space and trying to, influence further governments, and obviously, recent with the white paper, the White House discussions. So we know that we have made progress and there's inroads, and this isn't necessarily about regulation. This is also about the economics piece. And, you know, if we can look at, obviously standardisation is fantastic and following standards, but, you know, from an economics point of view and compliance, this is also about cost savings. And we know that companies don't necessarily, you know, prioritise security. They all would have security as a priority, but it gets pushed down. So this is not an IT security problem in organisations. We know that this has to be a business priority, and that's what we're trying to do. So going forward, if we can move from that awareness to knowledge through to adoption, you know, we're obviously at that stage, we're really trying to create the demand, and this is very much about getting advocates on board, which we have many, many in our ecosystem, you know, and it's fantastic to have the CHERI Alliance, and Michael take you through that, but, you know, this is about championing the need for that safety for a critical, resilient future.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you want to add into that?
Maybe it's a good time to continue. Yes, in fact, there was a lot of work, groundwork being done, getting from research to prototyping. It was really essential to get there. But for the industry to adopt, and as Nuala said, you need to convince companies to prioritize adoption of CHERI and adoption of security technologies. And this is the most difficult part. We need to find what arguments can be used, and not one argument, but a portfolio of arguments that would help them take that step and prioritize that. They need to see the ROI. They need also to see the strategic interest. Could be a lot of things. And basically, as the idea behind the CHERI Alliance was, the industry has to own the thing, the promotion activity, the transfer, to make it efficient. It cannot just be a push by governments, cannot be just a push by academics. It needs to be owned by the industry. And that's really the idea behind every standard, like USB, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. You have an organization, because you have to centralize all this activity under one roof so that it's more efficient. Yeah, it's like focusing through a lens. That's what we want to do for CHERI, making sure that everybody is aware, but also that we solve the problems of adoption. Could be very simple problems like, proving the value. How do we collect the data that needs to be used by advocates within companies to convince their management? Could be also helping the open source community migrate these millions of lines of code. It needs coordination so that we don't have duplication of efforts, as we have seen in the past. So a number of activities need to be kind of coordinated, and that's more or less what we want to do. And ultimately, we need a marketing push. Everything is marketing, right? You all hear about AI because some people have found that this is a very trendy thing, and it's trendy, so we need to talk about it, and everybody does it now. So if we make CHERI a trend, or if we make security a trend in general, then more people will adopt it. And having a marketing campaign is always more efficient when you have several companies or several entities, not just companies, talking about one topic consistently, coherently, and regularly. And that is also what we want to achieve as part of the alliance. So yes, it is a transition that needs to be done, and yeah, we are here to do that.
Thank you. So playing off that, turning to you, Ash, what lessons have you learnt as a SME in terms of adopting CHERI, using CHERI, or other memory safety ideas? I know we've dropped very quickly into the CHERI brand of things as opposed to opening it up. How do you see it? What have been the wins? What have been the question marks around that?
So we did a port of a router architecture. So we have had a router set up with I think an OpenWRT image, and then we ported that over to a pure CHERI implementation. And we found that, I didn't personally do the work, just to caveat it, but we found that, I think, relatively easy. It was, I think, a few months' work to get that working, and then we have those memory vulnerabilities are then eliminated or at least mitigated. And I think we saw that really wasn't actually that much technical work, as highlighted in the talk we just heard, and that the challenges are more around the business sort of challenges of having that platform there, having the big business partners, develop that platform and have it available so that we can then build software that targets CHERI systems and really have that. I think that's really the challenge, is being able to build a system and put it into production and know that the hardware is going to be there to house that.
So is that the biggest barrier to you right now, do you think, with memory safety technology, availability of platforms?
I think probably, yeah. Yeah, I think like a lot of the work we're doing now is in Rust, which helps sort of do that, and we're targeting a lot of our software development in Rust. But yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge to actually getting that out there.
Okay, thank you. So, Robert, turning to you, we've known about these issues around memory safety since the 1970s. Why, from the position of an organization like Microsoft, do you think it's taken us so long to address them, and how do we focus on moving forward?
Well, I wasn't alive in the 70s, so I can't speak for the people who were alive then, but I think it's about business priorities. Security hasn't always been a business priority, and it's only when it becomes obvious that it absolutely has to be that these kind of issues start to be addressed.
Okay.
Sadly. So you might be aware that Microsoft is having quite a big security push at the moment, and that's on the back of some incidents and some publications from the US government that make memory safety within Microsoft one of the focuses of their security push. So now you will find, if you're developing a new system in Microsoft, it has to be in a memory safe language. But that doesn't cover all of the legacy systems that we have, which are written in C and C++. And I think that's where CHERI would be very valuable if it could be deployed at scale. But the other thing I would say about that is Rust is great, and I think if you have a choice, you should use it. But you still might be interested in CHERI. And I have a very clear CHERI bias here, just in case you didn't notice. Because even with CHERI, with Rust, CHERI still gives you additional benefits of the compartmentalization and can even secure the unsafe bits of your Rust code. So that's my perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. So I've got a bunch more questions, but I'd like to open it to the audience as well. If there are any questions out there, please feel free to shout out. Everybody's blown away. John.
Hey everybody, it's John. I'm going to give you a magic wand. I know what you want, but I'm going to see if I can get some priority. We all know that we would like to see more manufacturers adopting CHERI in the at the silicon level. So I'm going to give you a magic wand, and out of all the silicon vendors or would-be vendors, give me in your priority order how you would like to see them come in. What would be your top, second, and third? And if you'd like to qualify that somehow, I know it's quite a big question, but I'd be very interested to hear what the panel thinks.
Mike, do you want to answer that first from the Alliance?
Okay, so, well, if we want magic propagation of CHERI, then all the IP vendors that sell processors should switch to CHERI immediately. And that would be the default mode. So that means every chip that is done from now would contain CHERI. So that's the most effective strategy, because then you don't have the choice, you would get CHERI by default. That would be magic, because that would solve the adoption problem. You don't have a choice, everything is CHERI by default. That would be ideal. But of course, it won't happen like that, so we need to convince not only the IP providers, but the chip vendors who adopt these processors to use the CHERI ones. We then need to convince the product manufacturers to adopt these chips, etc. So all the chain has to be convinced. But I think IP providers would likely be a good place to start as well.
Just to extend on that, sorry, Mike. I mean, so there are a number of public members of the CHERI Alliance right now. Yep. Others joining all the time, which you'll talk about at some point in the future.
12th of November, we have a launch event, official launch of the Alliance, and we'll talk about the other members. But I can talk about the ones that have been announced, including SCI. So SCI is on the chip part, so really good to have silicon, because we saw it's a blocking factor. We can convince a company to use CHERI in their products if they don't have chips. Well, it's a blocking factor. So this is really important. We have also Low Risk and Codasip, who are trying to provide these IP, and these are IP providers. They provide CHERI processors, but it's not sufficient. They will cover only one part of the market. We need to have a variety of IPs, variety of chips, and this is why we need to convince all the industry. And it's a big task, but yeah, we have to start somewhere.
Absolutely. Nuala, do you want to answer John's question around the magic wand?
Yes, sir. I mean, I would be thinking, obviously, the top 7, certainly to act as leaders in the tech community. And this is obviously about paving the way, which is what we've been trying to do, but ultimately also looking at smart procurement. And if we can, from a government perspective, lean heavily on smart procurement, that no goods can actually get through unless they've been, baked inside and manufactured with DSBD secure by design, secure by default principles. So I think Reg Tech has a huge place to play at this, as well as our tech leaders.
Do you think that government can impact the big players, either the big Tech 7 or organisations like BT, which have an infrastructure role here in the UK? How do we gain momentum behind that?
Well, when we're trying to prioritise our early adoption to certain supply chains that can act quickly, and we've been looking at telecoms, energy resilience and automotive telematics recently. We've been holding roundtables with government and with key industry players, specifically in those sectors, as well as defence and e-commerce that we have on board. But this is ultimately trying to assess their pain points to understand, and it's even difficult to get them in the room with their own sensitive IP data, whether they're willing to come to the table in the first place. But ultimately, this is about that collaborative approach and a societal mission to come together to address this. So with government driving that mission, that we're making inroads there. So, we're now moving forward into the sectors to address the supply chains and take this forward. But government are at the heart of driving that.
Do you think we join the dots between memory safety and the impacts that it has on their enterprises sufficiently, or is there more to be done around that memory safety? Very technology, and we saw the slides from Robert around CHERI and all the code bases. There's quite a jump from this is what the technology does to here's how it impacts your organisation. Is that something more to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think even just what CrowdStrike did, it's just making, all tech community and all organisations really sit up to understand what this is about and ask the questions. And we have to go back to them and say, well, what are you doing about your memory safety? What do you care? What have you done? This is about action. you know, and it's one thing, like we talk about incentivizing these businesses. We, you know, they shouldn't need incentivized, but you know, this should be a societal issue to keep safe. So, yeah, and we've plenty of use cases that we're starting to build to show that. And I know one that Peter Davis from Talis would refer to a lot, certainly in terms of, you know, you can't be safe unless you're secure. You can't be secure unless you're safe. You know, so even those aspects from a societal point of view and end user point of view, you know, this is for everybody. Just like critical national infrastructure should be taken seriously for everyone. And if we can get in there to CNI right now, and we are making inroads there, and we have Scottish Gas Networks on board, and we can see the need for CNI specifically to set up to lead this on our behalf. So, yeah, I think this is obviously more than memory safety.
Perfect, thank you. Ash, back to you and back to the secure networking by design a little bit to also play on John's question around the magic wand. It's been great, but what else? I mean, so it's great that you did some work. Morello, unfortunately, isn't stepping forward right now. Is there anything else that you think would have been impactful?
Yeah, so a lot of the work we're doing at the moment is around, you know, that the CHERI hardware isn't there at the moment. IoT devices are already out in the world. There's plenty of legacy devices out there which aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So a lot of the work we're doing is around securing the network hub, so that the router that these IoT devices are going through. So we've done a lot of work recently with NIST on secure onboarding of IoT devices. So this is looking to the future of when a device wants to connect to your network, instead of just you give it your username and your password and it can get onto your network forever. Instead, it onboards onto your network by submitting a cryptographically signed credential, which is from the manufacturer, and that's used to authenticate that device is who it says it is, and that it's owned by someone who's got the rights to connect devices to the network. So we've implemented a protocol developed by NIST called the Brewski protocol to do that. But then we're also working around these legacy devices won't be obviously implementing that infrastructure or that those protocols. So we've been doing a lot of work around a legacy device connects onto your Wi-Fi, and then it's immediately kicked off the network until you provide information of what this device is, who's the manufacturer, who's the owner of that device. Does that device type have an SBOM? Are there any severe vulnerabilities disclosed against that SBOM? So we're sort of working around how you can secure the IoT devices that are out there in the world at the moment. Because there's so many vulnerable devices that you just can't, it's not feasible that they're all going to be replaced with, even if CHERI hardware was ready right now, those IoT devices aren't going anywhere.
Okay. And do you think the network vendors are, or VMNOs, are reflecting these as challenges? Are they accepting the need for change and for adoption, or is it you're still pushing the envelope?
I think we're still pushing the envelope at the moment, and there probably needs to be more discussion with the network vendors themselves about how we'd integrate that into like routers worldwide. Okay,
thank you. Robert, from your perspective, the magic wand question, apart from infinite resources?
I think it's really interesting that we're touching on another key problem, which isn't really memory safety related at all, identity. And that's another thing. If we could wave a magic wand and solve both identity and memory safety, I think we'd be a very long way to solving many security issues. So if I could only choose one, I'm going to go with the memory safety and say, okay, suddenly magically all my software is written in a memory safe language. Brilliant. Solve that problem. Oh, hang on, no, I haven't, because even my memory safe language has underlying software that's written in memory unsafe language. How am I going to write parts of that system that fundamentally have to be memory unsafe. Oh dear. So in that case, I'll have CHERI instead.
Is it a...
And I would like to see companies like ARM capitalize on the lead they made, they had in CHERI, and provide hardware so that companies like Microsoft, who are in the business of making software, can actually use it.
Definitely. And I think it's definitely an and between Rust and CHERI. It's not an either or.
No, agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so we're nearly out of time for the panel. I'd like to open it up again to the audience if there's any questions. I'll just wait for the microphone.
Hey, thank you. I love CHERI, right? So don't get me wrong with this question. So I'm no longer at ARM, but I was at ARM when we went through the ABI change from V7 to V8, and CHERI being an ABI change from a software perspective. What work is happening to seed the ecosystem to enable? I know like NquiringMinds are doing a lot of work, but this code needs to be upstream. There needs to be cloud-based platforms that do CI/CD for CHERI-based software. We need tools like QEMU to be doing this stuff. We need cloud-based infrastructure to be running container environments that can do CHERI. Is all of this work in place? Have we learned the lessons from, I mean, Mike, we were at ARM together, right? So have we learned those lessons, and are we going to make it a lot quicker this time?
That's an excellent question, because that helps me to talk about the working groups as part of the CHERI Alliance. And in fact, we have started a CHERI Linux working group, but the plan is to have also other types of working groups. And also, I don't have a name yet because it's being formed, the open source software or open source contribution working group that would help also coordinating the incoming contributions, coordinating the work, making sure that we don't miss any element, trying to stimulate the community, the software community and the developers, accepting contributions from companies. And on Monday we had the press release showing that Codasip will contribute the work they have done on QEMU, on LLVM, on CHERI Linux as well, and will be contributing that to the CHERI Alliance GitHub. So that's basically what we want to help forming, having this community contributing, collaborating, and helping solve these elements. I know there's also some work being done on CI/CD environments, as you mentioned. Not finished, but work in progress. And this is certainly something that we need as well. So yes, we have these elements on our roadmap. The idea is to get organized to push that, because if it's scattered initiatives that are maybe financed by a time-bounded project, then it's very risky. We need to have a long-term view, right? Robert didn't come with his time estimate, but I saw him talking about 30 years to get CHERI adopted and into all products, which might be true, because if you think about the fact that we have to replace all electronic products, that's kind of a big task, right? So we need to make sure that this effort is sustained over the long run. So yes, we have to put all of that together. We have to coordinate all of that, and the CHERI Alliance, in fact, is the set of its members, right? So the more members, the more companies contribute and collaborate in this environment, the faster it will get. So yes, this is a very good point. We have to provide all the tools to help with this transition, else it won't happen. Yeah, and we have to ensure also interoperability, compatibility between different vendors. You have to make sure that CHERI code that has been written adapted to CHERI works on RISC-V, on ARM, on x86, on whatever. So yes, this is needed, and we have to continue working on that.
Okay. Anybody else wish to add to that?
One thing that I don't think the other Robert, didn't emphasize in his talk was that CHERI was always designed to be backwards compatible. So you can run non-CHERI aware code on the CHERI platform. And that will help with the ABI challenge. But you're correct to point out that it is the biggest challenge to adopting CHERI, apart from having the hardware in your hands.
Chicken and egg.
Which is why I'm excited to see it being used in situations like SCI, where the ABI compatibility is not such an issue for embedded and IoT applications.
Perfect, thank you. I'll pay you later. Okay, well, I think we're nearly out of time for the panel, and I know some of the panel members need to disappear quickly. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us.